object gliding with purpose until it struck high-voltage power lines and dropped to the ground.
It's no human technology. There is no question in my mind. This could change our future.
In March 2025, a blinding light cut through the Colombian sky. Then, boom! A perfect metallic sphere slammed into a hillside. Witnesses said it zigzagged mid-air, breaking every rule of flight. When Russian scientists got their hands on it, they claimed it wasn't a weapon or even space junk. They called it a time capsule, a device built to teach physics by defying it. But weeks later, their data vanished, their labs went silent, and the sphere's secrets deepened. It weighed more each day, chilled the air around it, and predated the pyramids by 7,000 years. And then, 5 more spheres appeared. So, who built them, and what are they trying to tell us next? The fall over Buga. At exactly 2:47 p.m., March 2nd, 2025, the calm afternoon sky over Colombia cracked open. Farmers outside Guadalajara de Buga looked up to see a metallic sphere slicing through the clouds, spinning in zigzags no aircraft could match. Witnesses swore it stopped mid-air, hovered, then plunged, clipping power lines before vanishing behind the sugarcane fields. Minutes later, the hum of electricity died across the valley. When the dust cleared, a single silver orb sat smoking in the grass. The first man to touch it was Don Jose, a farmer whose hands had only ever known soil and cattle. He thought it was part of a satellite, maybe space debris, until his palm froze against the metal. Despite the 30-degree heat, the sphere stayed ice cold, around 4 degrees Celsius, a temperature it somehow held steady. Within minutes, his cousin David Velez, nicknamed El Potro, arrived, filming with his phone while Jose staggered back, dizzy and pale. The sphere, barely half a meter wide, weighed only 2 kilos, but it felt off, as if it had its own pull, a quiet resistance that made it seem alive. That strange weight wasn't the only thing wrong. The grass within 3 meters had already turned grey and brittle, the soil beneath it dry as bone. Not a trace of moisture remained. Later, engineer Rodolfo Garrido from UNAM described what he called a decaying ionized field, something strong enough to strip water from the air without leaving radiation. It was like the object drank the world around it. The sphere's surface looked smooth and seamless, no welds, no bolts, no signs of how it was made. Under sunlight, faint symbols shimmered across the metal, lines that resembled Ogham or even cuneiform, but matched no known script. Around its midsection sat 31 tiny holes, drilled so precisely that optical scanners couldn't detect tool marks. At the very center, a copper web, thin, branching, spider-like, glowed faintly whenever someone got too close. Local authorities brushed it off as a hoax, maybe a movie prop. Dr. Julia Mossbridge from the University of San Diego even called it a really cool art project. But when El Potro reached out to veteran UFO journalist Jaime Maussan, everything changed. Within 48 hours, the orb was in Mexico City under armed escort, heading straight to UNAM for testing. That's where things got even weirder. Water poured over its surface didn't drip. It vaporized on contact, despite the freezing exterior. It also began pulsing, a deep 2.5 hertz hum that gave nearby researchers pounding headaches and made lab instruments flicker. Maussan's team soon discovered something inside that no one could explain. Its internal structure didn't look engineered. It looked grown, and the design hinted at something impossible, an intelligence older than civilization itself. So, what was buried inside the Buga sphere that made even seasoned scientists walk away shaken? The June 20th, revelation, impossible engineering. By June 20th, 2025, the mystery had gone global. Maussan Television's headquarters in Santa Fe Gardens, Mexico City, looked less like a newsroom and more like the set of a sci-fi tribunal. The cameras rolled. Journalists whispered. On stage sat faces you'd never expect to share the same table. A US congressman who refused to give his name, veteran attorney Daniel Sheehan, Emmy-nominated documentarian Serena DC, paranormal explorer Jack Osborne, and UNAM's own Dr. Carlos Munoz beside engineer Rodolfo Garrido. This wasn't some late-night UFO livestream. It was a full scientific briefing, broadcast live, archived, time-stamped, and documented to the second. As the feed went out, the room dimmed. Garrido took the mic and projected the first high-resolution scans of the Buga sphere. And what appeared on screen didn't belong to this century, or any century we know. Advanced imaging, CT scans, neutron diffraction, even X-ray tomography, peeled back its layers. Inside were 3 perfectly concentric metallic shells, flawless and seamless, with no sign of entry or welds. Floating within were clusters of 9 to 18 microspheres surrounding a dense, cold central core that researchers described as a chip, something that looked less built than grown. Dr. Lauren Soloff from MIT joined via satellite, stunned by what she saw. The aluminum alloy's Brinell hardness tested at 330, numbers no factory on Earth could produce for bulk metal. Even Siemens engineer Dr. Jan Meyer confirmed it. The world's best manufacturing can't make a seamless sphere this size without leaving microscopic tool scars. The Buga sphere? Absolutely pristine. Then Garrido dropped the bombshell. Its mass had grown, from 16 pounds to 22, over days, with no added material. Precise calibrations, redundant sensors, and comparison weights, all verified. And still, the readings held. Impossible, yet irrefutable. As if the object was quietly rewriting its own physics. Thermal data made things stranger. The sphere constantly absorbed 100 watts of heat energy, like a living refrigerator, yet its inner core simmered above 150 degrees Celsius. No battery, no chemical reaction, no power input, just endless cooling on the outside, raging heat within. Scientists called it a closed violation of thermodynamics. And when the AI-assisted translation of those shimmering glyphs was revealed, the room went silent. The origin of birth through union and energy in the cycle of transformation, the meeting point of unity, expansion, and awareness. Poetic, yes, but arranged with mathematical precision, as if it wasn't a message to us, it was a key. You could feel the tension. Phones buzzed, US military consultants logged in from encrypted feeds. Mosan leaned toward the mic and said, "We wanted everyone to participate." We're not covering this up. But one final revelation was still loading, because the most shocking evidence didn't come from Mexico at all. It came from a radiocarbon lab in Georgia, a test that would shatter the timeline of human civilization. So, if this sphere wasn't from our future, could it actually be from our past? 12,560 years old, the Younger Dryas connection. When the University of Georgia released its carbon dating results, the internet lost its mind. Dr. Stephen Greer, the same man behind the Disclosure Project, went public with something no one expected. The Buga sphere wasn't modern. It was ancient. Using accelerator mass spectrometry, researchers dated organic resin pulled from the sphere's microscopic channels to around 12,560 years before present. Not dust, not contamination. Structural resin, the kind used to anchor fiber threads inside the object's lattice. That means the material was part of the original build. Let that sink in. We're talking Ice Age technology showing fiber optic precision. The lab ran multiple redundant tests and even locked the data with cryptographic hashes to prevent tampering. Every method pointed to the same conclusion. The Buga sphere was made when mammoths still roamed the Earth. Now, here's where it gets wild. That 12,560-year mark sits right inside the Younger Dryas, Earth's last big cold snap. Temperatures crashed in decades, megafauna disappeared, and flood legends began popping up everywhere, from Sumerian tablets to Vedic texts to the oral histories of South America. Graham Hancock, in his Ancient Apocalypse series, argued this wasn't random. It was the aftermath of a cosmic impact that wiped out a civilization advanced enough to build monuments like Göbekli Tepe. Mainstream science dismissed that idea for decades, but this sphere? It changes everything. If these results are accurate, the Buga sphere predates the pyramids by 8,000 years and Göbekli Tepe by 1,500. It even comes before agriculture as we know it. Think about what that means. This isn't linear evolution anymore, it's cyclical. Civilizations rise, master technology, collapse, and vanish. Maybe we've just been living in the reboot. Dr. Greer took it a little bit far. By October, he claimed that 5 identical spheres had appeared across Colombia, each emitting the same low-frequency hum. Only one has been recovered, but his warning sent chills. These might be ancient warning systems designed to activate before major global shifts. And here's the kicker. New geophysical scans show magnetic field distortions over the same regions where those spheres appeared. So, could these devices have been built to detect the same precursors that triggered the Younger Dryas catastrophe? Maybe the ancients left us a message not for the past, but for right now. Of course, skeptics fired back fast. They questioned Greer's credibility, the sample's sourcing, and even the lab's motivations. But the University of Georgia's isotope facility is no backroom setup. It's one of the most respected on the planet. Their carbon-14 protocols, control samples, and isotope cross-verification passed every audit. Still, the debate had barely started before something even stranger happened. Russian scientists who had claimed the sphere was a time capsule suddenly went silent. Their data vanished from shared servers, their labs went dark, and their internal logs stopped updating overnight. So, what exactly did the Russian team uncover that made them disappear? Russian silence, the time capsule, theory, and negative mass. The first to break the silence was a single encrypted message posted to a Russian academic forum, time-stamped 3:12 a.m. Moscow time. The author's username matched a metallurgist from the Kurchatov Institute, one of Russia's oldest nuclear research centers. The post was only 27 words long. It's not propulsion. It's inversion. The field is negative. It pulls space around itself. Within minutes, the message disappeared, but not before screenshots flooded Telegram. That's when the whispers about negative mass began. In classical physics, negative mass shouldn't exist. It means an object would accelerate opposite to the direction you push it. Impossible under Einstein's equations. But decades ago, Soviet physicist Andrei Sakharov theorized that vacuum energy fluctuations could create inverted mass pockets, tiny regions where gravity repelled instead of attracted. Most dismissed it as math fantasy. Now, Russian labs were claiming they had measured it inside the Buga sphere. According to leaked reports cited by the Moscow Technological Review, the object generated a localized gravitic field that reversed polarity under extreme cooling. Translation: when scientists dropped the temperature below negative 120 degrees, the sphere's apparent weight didn't just change, it flipped. Instruments showed a lift equivalent to negative 0.07 grams. It wasn't floating, but it was fighting gravity. Here's where it gets stranger. Researchers tried scanning the sphere with neutron imaging. The results showed no internal seams, no voids, and no welds. Instead, a recursive lattice, like a fractal folded inside itself, kept appearing at different magnification levels. The structure behaved like it was designed to contain time-dilated material, meaning its inner components could experience seconds, while the outside world experienced centuries. One of the Russian physicists, Dr. Natalia Korotaeva, reportedly called it a temporal seed vault. Her last recorded communication, an email to a colleague in Zurich, read, "It's not a weapon, it's a chronometric library." Someone stored knowledge inside time itself. Then, on November the 2nd, all correspondence from the Kurchatov Institute's Division 12 vanished. No official shutdown notice, no data archives, nothing. Even internal project IDs were scrubbed from Russia's Science Ministry portal. Satellite images taken days later showed the lab sealed under scaffolding and a temporary Faraday dome, standard protocol for high-energy containment. Independent analysts believe the Russians were following a fail-safe written into the object's field behavior. When the sphere's internal energy signature crossed a threshold, believed to be caused by exposure to cosmic radiation, the field began emitting low-frequency pulses in the 8 to 12 Hz range, the same range as the human brain's alpha waves. Some claim those frequencies affected nearby researchers. Leaked EEG data showed synchronized brain activity spikes during the pulses, almost as if the sphere was entraining human consciousness. Now, combine that with Greer's idea of activation before global shifts. If these spheres were designed to awaken during magnetic or cosmic disruptions, the Russians may have triggered something prematurely. But what's most haunting is this. 2 weeks after the blackout, seismic monitors in the Ural Mountains detected rhythmic underground vibrations, every 108 minutes, exactly matching the sphere's pulse pattern before the lab went dark. Were the Russians still running tests underground, or did the sphere's activation spread beyond their control? The linguistic code, Sanskrit resonance and biosynthesis. When footage leaked of the Buga sphere reacting to human voices, people thought it was fake. But then came the lab data, and the internet couldn't look away. The sphere didn't just hum back, it sang in sync. During one test, Sanskrit mantras made its electromagnetic field spike by almost 30%. That wasn't random background noise. It was a response, like the object was listening and remembering. Enter Patrick Morcillo, a linguist and bioengineer who published a wild paper on June 10th called Elicitation of the Language of Life. He claimed that the 24 strange glyphs carved around the sphere's copper contact weren't words at all. They were amino acid blueprints. According to him, the curved lines mapped to how peptides fold, the dots showed charge distribution, and 6 separators marked where one molecular chain ended and the next began. Imagine a recipe written in shapes instead of letters, and the copper spider in the center acting like a 3D printer for life itself. Morcillo's math checked out more than anyone expected. When his team overlaid glyph patterns on amino acid datasets, the correlations lined up too neatly to be a coincidence. His conclusion hit like a brick. Whoever built the sphere didn't just write a language, they wrote biology. Then came the Sanskrit connection. Between July and October, viral clips surfaced of researchers chanting ancient Vedic verses near the sphere. Each time, vibrometer readings showed synchronized electromagnetic spikes at very specific frequencies. The sweet spots? 528 Hz, the so-called love frequency used in Gregorian chants, 7.83 Hz, which matches the Earth's own Schumann resonance, and frequencies identical to core Sanskrit phonemes. And here's the twist that broke TikTok. Linguists agree that Sanskrit is one of the world's most precise sound systems. Every tone has a defined tongue and breath position, producing repeatable vibration patterns. If the sphere was designed to respond to ancient sonic codes, Sanskrit's precision makes it the perfect key. Some even suggest that Sanskrit wasn't born from human invention. It was inherited, passed down from the same culture that built the sphere. That idea links back to the Rigveda's Vimanas, the flying crafts described thousands of years ago. If those myths are echoes of a 12,000-year-old technology, then maybe the chants weren't just prayers, they were operating commands. The bigger picture? Morchillo believed the sphere worked on 3 levels: visual, electromagnetic, and acoustic. The glyphs teach molecular logic, the internal fibers show photonic data flow, and the sound resonance hints at how vibration can shape matter itself. That's not communication, it's creation. The Buga sphere might be a time capsule meant to reboot human understanding when we are ready to decode it. But not everyone's convinced. Stanford's Dr. Gary Nolan insists it's a terrestrial artifact, just exotic fiber optics that people are overinterpreting. He calls it a masterclass in apophenia, seeing patterns where none exist. Still, with 5 identical spheres now active across Colombia, glowing and humming after 12 millennia of silence, the question remains, what exactly reawakened them? And what are they trying to prepare us for? The Betz-sphere connection, a pattern across time. So here's where things take a strange historical turn. 51 years before the Buga discovery, almost to the exact month, another metallic sphere made headlines, this time in Florida. March 1974, Fort George Island. The Betz family was hiking when they found what looked like a polished steel bowling ball lying in the woods. But this thing wasn't ordinary. When they brought it home, it started moving on its own, rolling, stopping, and turning corners like it knew where it was going. Journalists came to see it, and sure enough, it performed right in front of them. The ball refused to roll off tables, seemed heavier or lighter depending on who handled it, and emitted a deep throbbing hum that vibrated the entire house. That alone sounds like a TikTok hoax waiting to happen. But here's where it gets serious. Compasses spun wildly around it, radio signals dropped, and electrical appliances in the Betz home went haywire. Local scientists couldn't explain it, so the Navy stepped in, calling it a potential Soviet spy device. They took the sphere to the Jacksonville Naval Station for testing, claiming they'd return it after inspection. The official statement said it was nothing but a hollow stainless steel ball. End of story. But eyewitnesses swore the X-ray scans showed chambers and internal mechanisms. And when the Navy gave a sphere back, the Betz family noticed something off. It felt lighter, the markings were faintly different, and after that they stopped talking to the press completely. Anonymous calls warned them to stay quiet. The original Betz sphere? Never seen again. Now, jump to today. Reddit sleuths in 2025 began connecting the dots between the Betz and Buga spheres, and the list of similarities is unnerving. Both were discovered in March. Both are seamless and weld-free. Both are responsive to motion, magnetism, and human presence. Both drew immediate military attention, followed by government silence. And both, if you believe the latest leaks, contained internal structures that shouldn't exist under known physics. Then in June 2025, researchers stumbled on something even crazier. A sphere nearly identical to both, sitting unnoticed in a Colombian museum since 1949. Labeled Artifact of Unknown Origin, it had gathered dust for decades, assumed to be decoration. That pushes the timeline back 76 years before Buga and 25 years before Betz, which means this isn't an isolated event, it's a recurring pattern. And get this, an old 17th century Jesuit map mentions 9 spheres of arrival scattered along global ley lines, connecting ancient monuments from Egypt to South America. What if these things are appearing at fixed intervals, waiting to activate in sequence? Because right now, 5 Buga spheres are already awake, humming in synchronization. Which raises one chilling question. What happens when NASA tries to open one, and all 9 finally turn on at once? And here's the strange part. The Russian lab's data logs didn't just vanish, they were wiped, as if someone, or something, wanted to erase the experiment itself. The Buga sphere sits locked away now, humming faintly, its core colder than ice yet pulsing like a heartbeat. Some say it's a teaching tool from another civilization. Others, a warning. But if it really is a time capsule, then who sent it, and what message is still waiting inside? Tell us your thoughts in the comments section below.